John Edwards.
Here.
John Quinn.
Here.
Okey-dokey. Parents of interested citizens, Conway? Francie's not gonna talk to you.
He's not a citizen.
Okay, consent agenda. Need a motion, please?
Wait, are the minutes on the consent agenda?
Yes, that's all that's there.
They, listed, Roger Quinn as being, making the motion.
What? Didn't you guys get married?
Resolution 2526.
That's where you get them.
That is hilarious. I will have that.
Okay. Catch, because I didn't catch that.
I didn't even see resolution on 6.
Which wasn't my name either.
So which one was it?
Resolution.
I know,
Yeah.
Yeah, 2526, the second paragraph, it says.
right, but who said?
Was it Roger or
Oh,
Quinn?
I'll have to go back and look. It was probably right.
Okay. So I need a motion with that correction.
I move to amend to adopt the, I move to, adopt the consent agenda as amended.
I second that.
Okay. I think that's okay. Okay, roll call.
Peterson,
Yes.
Roger Tom.
Yes.
Sean Edwards.
Yes.
John Quinn.
Okay. Alrighty, resolution 25-27, transfer of appropriations in FY 2025 budget.
So when I was doing, finishing up June, there was a few items that we were over budget on that we hadn't used contingency for. They're just small amounts, in the gun pump station, nothing specific. Down on the Gold Hill treatment, as we had said 2 months ago, we had mentioned that we had another bill coming for the legal for the bond debt with Gold Hill. That one came through at the end of June, a little over 10,000. So didn't have enough in that line item, so I needed to move a little bit from contingency over to materials and services.
Those dudes charge out $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Been here for 5 minutes, so we're good to go. We're rounding up.
Yeah. Okay, a motion for or any other further discussion? Okay, a motion please.
I move to approve resolution 25-27, transfer of appropriations into fiscal year 2025 budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, roll call please.
Peterson,
Yes.
Roger Tom.
Yes.
John Edwards.
Yes.
John Quinn.
Yes.
And resolution 25-28, streamline contract ADA compliance.
Yes, so the Americans with Disabilities Act applies to pretty much every, including our website. And so the way you be compliant with the website is mostly focused, I think, on people that have vision impairments. And so they have technology where they can scan over a website and it'll read the text to them. If you go over a picture, it'll be a description. So this is a picture of a lake with some swans swimming, or whatever it is. The person that creates the website has to put that information in there. And then other things like reading charts and graphs and stuff, there has to be descriptions of it that it can read. So when we first built our website, our new website a few years ago, supposedly it was compliant, but we added stuff, we put our budgets on there, we change things, it becomes out of compliant. In Oregon, the law goes into effect in April next year. So that's when we're supposed to be compliant. And it's not something that we can really do in-house. I mean, maybe we could, but it would be a monumental effort. So we're opening a contract with a company called Streamline. And they have a standing contract with SDAO to do this type of work. Other special districts in Oregon. It's not cheap. It's like $8,000, almost $9,000 a month. Right?
No, that's
So,
a
for the
year.
Okay, it's still not cheap.
That's not cheap.
But, and it would be more if they have to do any real significant upgrades. That will presumably keep us compliant with ADA. When Carol first brought that to me, I said, well, what's the penalty if you don't?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, there's been lawsuits, and it's, and probably more to come. Average settlements so far have been in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. It's not huge. But, I think if you do it now, you avoid a lawsuit. If you do get a lawsuit, you gotta pay, and then you gotta do part of the order on the settlement. So we might get ahead of it, just.
People in California are really shyster law firms that will actually hire people to go to different locations or look at different websites.
Yeah.
And just sue as a business.
Yeah.
Send out a demand letter.
Yep.
They make a surprising amount of money, and that's just,
Turns out $1,000 more. Those guys probably not.
it's contingent, but yeah.
Yeah.
They do.
Anyway, so we're recommending approval of that contract. Give a good start on that, to be fully compliant by April.
And then the monthly service continues on and on and on. Just does this contract only good for a year? Or?
It's a,
It's annual.
yeah,
It's an annual.
it's an annual, yeah.
So would we have a need to have them every year?
Yeah, they monitor constantly.
Yeah.
So, there's still gonna be a lot of work for us, because we're gonna have to format, like when we put our budgets, and the budgets are the hardest one, because there's so many graphics.
Well, just stop.
Tables and stuff. But, we're gonna have to do a lot more on formatting our documents before we post them on the website. And then, but Streamline will monitor it continuously, and I think they'll say, this needs fixed or that needs fixed. Either they'll fix it or they'll just tell us to fix it.
Roger, you have a question?
So, what's the upkeep requirements for a website? How often, does it have to be ADA compliant?
100% of the time.
Yeah,
So whatever we put on the website, before we put it on the website, we need to not only have Microsoft or Adobe Acrobat or whatever scan it to make sure they think it needs compliance. I actually have a third-party free thing that checks to see if it meets the compliance as well. And so, so I've been doing that. I've been playing with the budget, seeing how we can make it compliant. It's not an easy feat. Tables will probably have to be different. But it's a big document, and there are ways for us. One of the options is a $7 per page fix. But if we do everything we possibly can on the budget, let's say, before we give up, there will only be the charts and graphs and organizational chart things that probably will need to be fixed by the $7 per page, if we want to keep them that way. It is a 30% discount because of SDA. So it could be a lot more.
I'd say, we're kind of used to, when we talk about ADA and accessibility, we kind of think your bathrooms have to be wheelchair accessible, things like that. And that's the first thing that comes to your mind, is build your bathrooms like that, and it's done. But this is kind of an ongoing thing where we're having to make a visual website accessible for blind people, which.
Oh, okay.
And for colorblind people and others. And it's been, I don't know what the phrase is, but rolling out Oregon is, Colorado, I think, was one of the first states to actually become compliant statewide, and so they're kind of the one to look at, but, Oregon isn't until April of next year. There are other states that had it required earlier.
How do you become AD compliant with blind people?
Well, they have a machine that reads everything on the
Okay, so
computer.
then you have.
They have software, and that's what it really means, is that it meets the software, so the software can read it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's certain ways to format a table where it actually is in a format that the software can read. I don't know, in the future, it'll be able to read anything and describe it without us having to work too hard, but for now, we have to work hard. So,
Yeah. And we don't have to provide that software for you.
No.
I mean, that's something that they would.
Yeah.
You just have to make it available. to your
Yeah,
software.
we have to make it so that their software will interact with what people needs to be written.
Roger, you had one question?
Yeah, so, I mean, so Streamline they'll fix it up for us tomorrow for $1,500. And then they go away.
No.
What if they go away for a year and then we just pay them $1,500 every year to?
They don't go
Check it.
away, they have on the website itself is a continual scan, and then there are manual scans that we can do provided from them, they do.
Okay, I understand that's what they're doing, paying
Yes.
$800. But I mean, seriously, it almost seems a little like, this seems scamish.
It does
Um,
damage, but it isn't, unfortunately, they do actually do, where is that? They do training for sure, I believe they provide a little bit of, legal help with this. Can't find
I
it.
get where you're coming from, Roger, where,
Yes.
why don't we just clean house
Yeah,
once a year, fix everything?
turned up work.
That's not a $1,500 fix, I mean, I think the $1,500 fix is with the service contract, with the, you allow them to have this ongoing relationship. I mean, we could look into it and see if they would be willing to, or if there's other companies that would, but my guess is that, that's not, they're wanting to sell us the ongoing thing. And
Yes.
so they'll come in and for $1,500, they'll do whatever the one-time fix is, and then continuously maintain that. If we go back and say, hey, we don't want to do the continuous maintenance, but we want you to come back next year and do this again.
They can't
I don't
scan
think
it
it's gonna be
once a year for
$1,500 fix.
$1,500, no.
No, we don't want it to only scan once a year, we want it to be scanned continually so that we're continually in compliance. But that's not the only thing they provide. Not the only service they provide, and in your packet, I believe, is this, the pricing plan that we're in the, I think the operations professional one, I believe. I can't remember, but, they do provide registration support for .gov, but we already have that. Their website software, just from what I watched them do, is easier than what we have now, more user-friendly than what we have now. For changing everything on there if we wanted to. The current site doesn't provide training. We have an Oregon compliance checklist that they're gonna be providing to us. They have scanning of all types. Manual testing, accessibility, they have an accessibility assistant. Well, they'll find and fix accessibility issues right on the page. ADA indemnification, they'll defend us in court. Up to $1 million, so for lawsuits up to $1 million.
That's worth the $8,000, right?
Yeah.
Well, wait. You just said the average lawsuit's like 15
Right,
or 20,000.
but it's only going to
Not
get
the
higher,
payout, not the attorney fees.
right?
And we're always adding to the website.
Yeah,
I put the board on there and a bunch of
And here's the way I would argue. You had an opportunity to make this accessible and comply with the law for $8,000 a year, Mr. Capper.
Yeah.
You decided not to. Do you not value
It's a
your
Ford Pinto.
customers?
Support it.
What are you telling this jury?
Well,
That
it's
my
not-
client is not worth $8,000? Ladies and gentlemen, send them a message.
It's
Make
not
it 80.
Tappert's decision. It's
You know
our
what I mean?
decision.
That would be the deposition.
But it's not on Tappert, it's on us.
I know, but I'm just messing with Carl because I like to.
Don't put him in front of the judge. Who's gonna say you?
Fine. Don't threaten me with a good time.
I mean, the only thing that gives this thing any credibility at all is that it's somehow associated with SDAO, you know?
Right.
I mean, and so is there a bunch of, are all the other SDAOers, I'm calling us an SDAO, or, okay, are all the other SDAOers, members of that, participating in this thing? Are we all doing that?
I don't know.
I don't know, I believe that there are, I mean, they actually work with the, they have the National Special Districts Association as well as a client. Special Districts of Oregon they have, and I believe there are other clients who are members of SDAO. Or, as you like to say, SDAOers.
I do know this training, since I've been involved with SDAO. Since 2020, Streamline has been very involved with that organization. Providing opportunity.
Well, yeah, they've been around a long time.
I know Medford's gotten compliant. I don't know if they use somebody through LOC, League of Cities, or whatever, but, it is a thing.
Now, what's nice is that any of the documents that we have that no one really looks at can be archived on the website where they don't have to all be compliant. We don't have to bring last year's budget document into compliance, but we do need to bring this year's budget document into compliance. So, because it'll be effective still after April. So
Are we bringing it to compliance or are they bringing it to compliance?
we can ask them to do it, but if we did ours into compliance, it would be over $1,000 to
So
do.
all they're doing is telling us if it's compliant or not.
It's a little bit of both. No, they're not only telling us that it's, something is not compliant, they're helping us figure out how to fix it. And there is, if we want to, an option where we go, I don't wanna deal with it, you fix it. But that is $7 per page, so.
All right, Nick sold me.
Thank you, Dan.
Good call.
Are you on you're on the scam end?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's $735 worth of work every month for them to do. You know, I mean, are we adding that much stuff? Damn thing.
It's only 45 minutes for a mobility bias.
Is that?
That 750 is only 45 minutes for bond counsel.
That's right. Only 45 minutes a month. But I mean, it is a lot of money. That's obviously, if I can say, up to you to go ahead and do, or hope that those of us who have worked on the website and all of our documents are able to get them compliant on time.
How many people have been sued in Oregon for this?
I do not know.
I wouldn't mind knowing what the other SDAOers are, how they're looking at
We
this.
can find that out. And you know, really, the alternative to doing this is basically procure all the difference. Because there's, you know, there's.
I'd rather pay her another $8,000.
Yeah.
I have to say, I mean, I worked on getting the current budget in compliance. And it's a lot more than $7 a page if I do it. I don't know how they do some of our tables, but they say they'll do it, so it's a lot more than that. If I do it every time.
Do we get any kind of insurance break? Or is through
I don't think
SDA?
this will affect our liability.
Not
insurance
enough.
on that account. You know, it's, you know, we're coming to you fairly early. Like I said, you know, the plan doesn't happen until April, but we might have plenty of time to do that. But, you know, if you wanted to feel more comfortable, we can come back next month. We can get, with Roger, we can find out how many other districts in Oregon are taking advantage of this service. And,
Yeah, who's been sued?
and kind of flesh out, you know, I mean, what, you know, because even with Streamline, there's a lot of work on our end to bring things into compliance.
And to keep things in compliance.
Yeah, and so we can look and we can kind of make a better comparison of that. And it's not just money, it's time, because Carol has other duties.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can.
How's the side?
Yeah. So that, you know, that's something to consider as well, is, so, you know, it's, you know, okay, you know, you assign this extra duty to Carol and willing to pay her extra money for that, but you know, she also has, you know, maintain that whole system and keep all of our cybersecurity up to date.
Okay,
and
so
other things.
what I think I'm hearing is there's kind of a consensus to get more information about who else is signed up with, Streamline, if anybody's been sued and that kind of stuff. So do I need to have a motion to table, this resolution until next? Or do we just table it?
It'd probably be best to do that as a motion.
Yeah, I think. So, I mean, if that's what everybody wants.
I'm ready to approve it now. It's not hard.
Okay, so whichever you want, if you want to make a motion for the resolution and go for it, or if you want to wait.
Move to adopt resolution 2528 as presented.
Is there a second?
Well, if we find out that other people are doing it or not doing it or whatever, it's not figuring out our decision. We're either gonna do it because it's the right thing to do, or put it off for a month, or just, what difference is it gonna make, if we know who's doing it, who's not?
We may feel better informed.
Putting it off for a month, if I might say, putting it off for a month may put us really close to the deadline by the time they're done with our website.
It's not April.
It is April. It takes a long time. I mean, how many months did it take for them for DC3 to design our website? It seemed like it was almost a year.
And they might raise the price.
But they didn't mention that. But
Okay.
that's of course.
We have a motion on the table. And a second. Or whatever.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Kate Hersey,
Yes.
Roger Tom,
Yes.
Chuck Edwards,
Yes.
Doug Quinn.
Yes.
Okay, the motion has passed. Thank you, guys. But it was a good discussion. And I think this happens occasionally with things that we get emotion on. And we really would like more information to help us make an informed decision on these things. This one is one of those that would have been nice to have a little bit of backup information. So just keep that in mind, you know, that we like wherefores and as-is and all that stuff. Okay? And next resolution, 2529, adopting the board of directors chair and other positions.
So, you know, last month we filled in all the positions for council of governments and all of that. So we had Mike Parsons as the vice chair, and obviously we don't have her being vice chair, so we need to.
That's a re-rolled vice president, yeah.
Okay.
Very rare. So what we need is,
Someone should volunteer or nominate someone else to be
for
vice chair.
question.
I'll nominate Roger Quinn. John, you wanna do it?
Actually, I was gonna nominate you, Roger.
I'll nominate John Quinn.
Explained by week brace.
I second the nomination.
For John Quinn.
He's the only one.
Because it doesn't look like Roger wants to do it.
Roger Quinn's has.
Yeah, and Roger.
You gotta
Quinn.
show up.
Yeah, and that's helpful. All right, we need roll call on that?
Kay Harrison?
Yeah.
Roger Cone?
Yes.
John Edwards?
Yeah. If everyone insists.
So what, what assignments did Mike have?
That was it.
Just the vice chair, so?
Yeah.
Okay, everything else is still cool?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure, so, okay, so all you have to do is,
Sit here and look pretty.
yeah, what you can do,
Done.
yeah, do that, that's pretty easy. All right, next one, financial updates.
Right. We have the unaudited fourth quarter year-end fiscal year 25 audit or financials. Let's see. So at year-end, we had the 2 Gold Hill loans that we were still trying or needing to assume. We had finished the Business Oregon loan assumption. That one you can see on page 3 at the bottom. That one is indicated June 30. Still working on the USDA loan. Should be soon. And on page 4, page 6, not so much excitement pages between there. On page 6, we had the treatment charges were about halfway down. We were over about 7% on our compared to budget on the treatment charges that we paid out. Those are due to the increased treatment charges that were charged in September. We did not charge our customers. We just paid out. They are now being billed that additional charge July 1. And so on that same page, page 6, if you look at the life insurance ADD and LTD, should also put in their self-employment or self-insured unemployment. And there's about $17,000 of unemployment that we had to pay out. That's why we are over budget on that line item.
So, about that, should the paid Oregon leave, instead of being 0%, actually be infinity?
Is there that sign on the keyboard?
It's on my notes.
Oh. We didn't budget for it. We had it combined, in the prior year. Separate out as a line item, not budgeted line item.
Nick follow up on that.
You got a picture.
That's why I don't have that on the. Oh. Look at all the notes I had. To identify if you guys have any questions.
Questions of Brenda? Okey dokey. Project updates.
Okay. I do have a quick stormwater erosion control program update. DEQ sent us the draft versions of the new 1200C and MS4 permits for review, right, agency comments. And just in a nutshell, those are the permits that are non-negotiable marching orders for us to run our program. And so the ability to, provide comment and talk through with them, have them actually be receptive to our concerns is really kind of nice. We met with the actual permit writer of the 1200C permit. And, they were pretty receptive to most of our comments. There was a couple that, I don't think they're going to be huge sticking points for us, but we'd like them to sure we'll see the revised permit here soon. The MS4 can be much more contentious than 1200C. I just got out of a meeting with the Aqua Group, discussing our concerns. We're gonna meet another meeting with the permit writer of that permit tomorrow as a group. And all in all, that MS4 rewrite is much clearer and not as big of an issue for us as the last one. Huge.
Yeah, that was
huge
kind
rewrite.
of,
We spent years trying to get our side manual up to speed, so. For the most part, it's just, we will incur a little bit more liability if the permit goes through as drafted, but that's just. But as far as mechanistically, we're more than equipped to take care of all the other changes. As far as projects go, the Gold Hill Regional Connection, we should be receiving 90% plans this week, I believe. Is that the rumor on the street?
He told me yesterday to be yesterday, but I
Okay.
heard today, so.
Yeah, which we've also heard that that's a heck of a package. I think it's 200 pages or something.
Yeah.
For the plan sheets, and then who knows how many pages for the specifications. So we'll be taking some time to review that. The Antelope Road project construction and punch list items are complete. So all of the site work is done. We're just working out the last paperwork to close that one out. A little bit of work on Chico 3, nothing to note. Same with Echo Way, the 4th Street railroad crossings in Gold Hill. We received our permits from ODOT to do our pre-project work, lateral work. So we'll be starting that in the next few weeks. And then probably bid that project here in the next couple of months for construction, so we can complete that project. The CIPP job has been awarded and the contracts are complete. We're just waiting on pre-construction meetings. And other than that, UV disinfection, that one's clipping right along. It sounds like they got all of the electrical wires pulled and they're should be installing that equipment today. So brackets, they're centered in the channels. They're thinking about startup next couple weeks, first part of September.
Really?
cool.
So yeah, it's
Wow, that's really good.
yeah, it's just swing out there. It's
I don't know why,
it's a heck of a change. I pictured it being way bigger, but the chain, it's kind of a tight little channel. But what it's going to look like pre versus post project is actually quite a bit.
We'll make a point to arrange a field trip after it's all done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, those ones are fun. We can show it to you.
Yeah.
We can show you the video of fight, but that's not awesome.
That's a big deal. It's in my opinion, a pretty big deal for them.
For that plant, yeah, that's a huge change. It's really big. So, what else we got? That's it.
TJ, your turn.
Thank you. Yeah, Flusher Crew, they got 18 miles of pipe clean, TV Crew, 15 miles of pipe. They wrapped up this morning, do a little bit of work for ODOT, just on the 5, looking at some storm drain crossings on the 5 yesterday and today. Nothing much to report from Gold Hill or Shady Cove, and then the lagoons took in 365,000 gallons. Brandon passed his collections 2, which is good. That you have to have 3 years of work experience to be able to take 2, or treatment 2. He passed that. Tom passed his 3, and then since I wrote this, Sam took his collections 2 end of last week and passed it as well. So,
Wow, cool.
so he has his 3 years just right in September. So he was able to pass it here in a week or so. He'll be able to get the certificate.
That's cool. Good work. Okey dokey. Any questions or anything? Okay. Earl, it's your turn.
Okay, well, we have a vacancy to fill, obviously. Which on Parsons. The law doesn't really specify any process. I mean, you can, as long as someone's eligible to be on the board, you can appoint anybody. Use any method you want to choose that person. So the eligibility is you have to live in the district and be a registered voter and not be an employee of RBSS. So, anybody else in their district who don't? So, we've gone through this a few other times, similar situations. And in each of the previous ones, there was somebody who was obvious. When Mike was initially appointed to fill the vacancy. Jim Lewis died, yeah. But he was always here. He was the central point liaison for the councilors at every meeting. When Jim Lewis was appointed, when Wayne Brown, his health was failing, he had just recently been voted off the island and we brought back. That's Roger. And it's similarly, when Wayne Brown got brought on, who did he replace? Mike Parker. When Mike Parker moved out of town.
Yeah. Yeah.
We appointed Wayne. Wayne was the appointed liaison. He was already at all our meetings. We don't have anybody right now who's already at all our meetings. So what I'm proposing to do is, our budget committee is kind of the bench. So I want to contact everyone on our budget committee and see if there's any interest there. And then I also want to contact all of the city managers of cities that we serve and see if they have anyone on their council or anyone on their planning commissions, because that's another good source of civic-minded people. And see if they have. I might even contact Anna Marie over at LVCOG and see if she has anybody. But I printed out a copy of the kind of the letter I would send out, and on the back of that is the application. I think 5 years or something. Okay. So if that proposal works for you guys, I'll get started on that. One thing, I do want to talk about the dates and the timing of that. Because what I wrote here was that applications would be due on September 12th, which is the Friday before our next board meeting. If you think that's too fast, because that's only it's like 3 weeks, or if you think that's too fast, we can push that to October. If you give us plenty of time, then we'll just stick with that.
I don't know. I don't think it's too fast.
Okay.
And we can extend it if we want to.
Yeah. If we don't,
We can extend it.
yeah,
Yeah.
if we
yeah,
don't get any,
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I will do that today, get that sent out.
The timing with that, I'm out of town the next 2 board meetings,
Okay.
September and October, so we might make sure we got quorum.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll make sure to send you copies just so you can let us know your opinion. You're gonna be able to zoom in?
No, not.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. No. But yeah, we'll make sure to send you, what we have and if you have strong opinions on it, we'll make sure it's addressed. Okay, STC methodology. This is very much simpler than what our previous one. And I think that's a good thing. But essentially in a nutshell, what this would do is that would remove the arbitrary distinction we have between trunk systems and collection systems, because they're all pipe in the ground. So we would consider all of our pipe in the ground to be the collection system and have that a uniform SDC for everyone in our district. And then the 2 that we would have that would be different would be the treatment SDCs. Well, everyone's going to pay a treatment SDC and a collection SDC. Collection is going to be the same for everybody. Treatment for the core area is set by the regional rate committee. Treatment for Shady Cove would be set by us, and Oak Hill would be set by us. And what we've done in the past is we just set Shady Cove to be the same as what it is for everybody else. As long as we can justify an amount that's that high if we can, then we just make it the same because it's easy. And there's not a ton of new built houses going in either of those places. So, that's it in a nutshell. If you want to get to kind of the actual numbers of it, they are. Oh, that's on the last page. So we'd be eliminating the Interceptor development, the Eagle Point trunk development, and the Way City trunk development. And everything would be the collection system. And with the methodology, we're able to justify a SDC of 2,185 for collection system, which would be an increase for everybody if we went that high. Yeah, I mean, the highest one right now in Eagle Point, they pay a total of $1,650. And so it would go up to 2,100. So it would be an FTC increase. I think it's justified. We've always set our FTCs lower than what we can justify. And I think we've always tried to be a little bit more favorable for the development community. But that reflects in the rate. I mean, if you're money that you're not collecting as an STC, you're having to pay for as a rate. So it gets paid one way or another. It's just a question of what's fair and who should be paying. So what we'd be recommending would be, like I said, the $2,100 for the collection system, and then I would recommend setting Shady Cove and Gold Hill treatment to match the regional treatment rate. Again, it's such a small amount of money because Gold Hill, you're lucky if they issue 2 permits a year. I mean, it's not much happening there. And then once the intertie is made, they're going to be part of the core system anyway. So they'll be paying the regional SDC there. The other change then is that we would index all of this to the, I think I said the Engineer News Record Construction Cost Index. And I had to look up what they actually index, and I don't know how relevant it is, but everybody uses it. And remember what the numbers were? It's like 200 hours of general labor at the 20 city average cost plus so many tons of steel and so many board feet of 2x4s and so many yards of concrete. And that's their index. So nothing about pipe or excavation or anything like that, but everybody uses it. There is, the Army has some kind of index they use that might be more relevant, but it's even weirder. It's hard to get there. It's hard to suss out what the actual angle rate is on that, because they use it for projecting costs like 50 years into the future. Not so much as to measure what's happening right now. So anyway, that's the major change, is that we wouldn't be recalculating the methodology every year like we do now. We would set it one time and then we would apply that index to it, and every year we would adjust just based on that index. So we would keep up with inflation. And that's an acceptable methodology that most other cities and districts use. So it would be kind of online with the standard practice.
There's something called a consumer price index. I think some cities
you
also
use that
use.
too. Consumer price index is more, that has a whole bunch of stuff, but that is for consumers, like a person. So there's how much you spend for food, for gas, for utilities, for transport, whatever, and they've got like hundreds of different things they measure. And that's real accessible. If you just go on the Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics, whatever, at least it's still accessible. I don't know if they're pulling that offline yet or not. But that's that, and we use that to adjust our cost of living on wages. They also have the Producer Price Index, which is focused more on the manufacturing side of it, which might be more relevant to this type of work. That's the cost of production versus the cost of sale that the consumer sees. So, and I think because the producer price index kind of leads, like if you see a bump in producer price index, month or two later, you'll see that same bump appear on the consumer price index because that's the cost work through the system. So there's other indexes you can use. Medford uses the engineering news record for their SDC adjustments. And I think most other places that index that actually do there. They hide it behind a paywall, but you can usually find it without paying.
How does it tend to compare to KPIs?
Is what?
How does it tend to compare to KPIs?
Compared to,
The engineering news record.
The engineering,
how does it compare to
Yeah.
the CPI?
what are the KPIs?
It's usually lower, actually, at least what I've seen. Yeah,
What we would be doing is, CIPP pipes, things like that. That don't get there. And, we don't go through too many 2x4s, I don't think.
Yeah.
We don't go through a lot of girders, probably more pipes.
yeah,
So it's not really, like, for example, if
well,
pipes that come from Mexico and China, which we don't make them anymore, get
yeah.
hammered with a tariff, that's gonna be costing us more than is reflected in the increase.
So when we do our pipe reimbursement resolution.
See that next month.
It'll be next month. Yeah, but what we do on that is we take the cost of the pipe, we take the cost of labor, which is from Foley and what the prevailing wages are, and then we factor in whether it's rock or slurry backfill and all that. That gives us an index on pipe costs. We could do that too. I mean, that's more work in-house to do that. We can sort of we would have to define how we calculate that index in this document. That's something we can do that would be very directly relevant. We also track costs of private projects. That's one of the requirements we have when someone finishes a private project, they have to tell us the cost of the project. And then we used to have what's called a front foot fee anyway, but we still maintain that data where we have every year how much pipe is built, how much it costs, what's the average cost for a pipe. And that's another thing that we could index to, and that would reflect the real conditions that we have here in the valley. I mean, we're dependent on developers to report the numbers. Yes, so and I
There's a
don't.
big highlight under that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm just trying to think of how they. I mean, there's no incentive for them to give us fake numbers. But
Other than, yeah.
but I guess this supposedly could, if they decided to undervalue their projects to keep the SDCs lower.
Ooh, that's the long game. Yeah, I think a lot of times what you get with those is that's one of the last things to get their project accepted. They're like, how do you want me to calculate this? I'm like, oh, but they just write numbers down.
Yeah.
It's safer to just go with an index.
Yeah,
But if Public Works generally uses engineering news record.
yeah, and I think honestly, you're not gonna find much differences, So anyway, if this draft is acceptable to you, what I will do is I need to fill in all the appendices, and we have to give a 90-day notice of a public hearing. And so we'll get that fired up, and so you probably look at January, that we would have the public hearing on that. I would say that we might just go into that, July 1st.
Yeah.
All right, update on Gold Hill transition. Brenda already mentioned, the transfer of the loan, their existing loan. It's been paid for this year, and they're supposed to send us information on how to set up the ACH transfer. They haven't done it, but it's paid for the year, so they probably don't care until next year. We talked a little bit about the project that we're on track to have design complete by the end of the year, next year. We did make the final submission to USDA for their financing package. And we asked for the highest amount of grant that was available to us, which is a little over $3 million, which is more than what we thought it would be. We haven't gotten it yet. They said they were going to view it on August 8th. And they said it should be sometime the following week. And now we're in the following week, and now they're saying next week. So, it makes you kind of nervous because until you actually have it committed, you don't have it committed. A lot of things can happen. At the regional meeting on Monday, Lorraine was talking about $300 million Whitfield loan for the treatment plant. It's just like, they haven't signed it yet. We expect to sign it, but they haven't signed it yet. Why haven't they signed it yet? And so there's a lot of nerves going out there because it's such a big money. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that'll all get approved next week. And then what else is happening on that? Everything's moving along pretty good. The one there is a concern. The big unknown is the archaeological, cultural issues. Because they've drafted up the monitoring plan. When we dig that pump station at the Gold Hill treatment plant, it's basically going to be an archaeological dig. They're going to have to scrape 4 inches at a time, and the archaeologists have to inspect it and see if there's anything there. And until we're about 4 feet deep. And once we're 4 feet deep, we can go as fast as we can because you don't want this below that level. So that itself is going to run slow. But if they find bone fragments that are not clearly animal bones, then we could be shut down for months while it gets properly identified. So that's a big fear that something like that might happen. And then when we're going through town, we have to have an archaeologist on site that whole time too, because basically any human-made thing that is more than 50 years old is considered, I guess, an artifact or whatever, but it has to be documented. And so we don't have to do the 4 inches at a time script. We can just dig normally. The archaeologist is going to be watching. Yeah, artifacts. And we know there's a bunch of. We know from experience that you don't jump down off the excavator and pull something out of the side of the trench and say, "Hey, we found one." Right. We did that once in Jacksonville, and the archaeologist was somewhat upset. They don't. It's there. You just leave it. We document it, but you don't touch it. Just leave it where it is. And our expert got excited. I don't even know what it was, a bottle or something. So that's that's going to be one of the big unknowns that we have once we start construction. Is if we're going to run into any kind of cultural resources that end up being very expensive or very time consuming to deal with. So keep our fingers crossed on that. Moving on, the solar power projects, I still don't have a contract signed with them. But we will. There's not a real rush for it because all of the solar contractors right now, the tax incentives for residential ends December 31st. And so everyone who thought about doing solar at some point is trying to beat that deadline. So they're putting all their resources in trying to satisfy the residential customers. So they're not going to even be able to think about doing any of our solar work until January. So we're not in a huge rush, and we're still planning on going ahead and doing it. But we'll let them try to get this residence people taken care of. So they don't miss out on their tax break.
On the Gold Hill dig, you know, especially at the end of the, if we consider doing a pre-contract construction to have it excavated, and so it's ready to go, maybe?
We've already done some of that. I mean, we already did a full-on archaeological dig out there. So, yeah, I mean, that may be something we suggest to.
Yeah, that's actually-
If we can just come down and dig exactly where we're planning to dig.
And then you're off to the races after it's done.
And not have I mean, it's expensive to have the archaeologists do that, but it's a lot more expensive to have an excavator sitting there for a bunch and not be able to use it.
And that's the work, because the contractor has a perverse incentive to find something, because then everything they have there for that specific work is tracked on the time you have paid for the piece in there, so.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Dick and I have a meeting with the engineers tomorrow afternoon, so we'll raise that.
Yeah, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about putting something in the specs to allow them to very clearly say, hey, this is not part of your critical path. If you find something there, you can sit and wait, but there's also 8 mountain pipes still.
Right.
So, yeah,
That's good, too.
that's a good, both of those plans together would be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can just dig it and leave it open.
Yep. Yeah. No shoring, no nothing.
Yeah, you're only go down 4 feet.
Yeah, it's our retention facility for the drainage on site.
Right. Okay, I think that's all I have.
Okay, anybody have any questions or anything like that? Okay, I just need a motion for the claims, please.
In honor of Mike, I move to pay the bills.
Okay,
I'll second that.
it's been moved and seconded. It's been moved by John Quinn, seconded by Roger Tom, and roll call, please.
Kay Harrison,
Yes.
Roger John,
Yes.
John Edwards.
Yes.
Al Quinn.
Yes.
It's like the smallest payment ever, Skylar Award.
What is it?
It's like $76 or something, I don't remember.
Retainage or something?
I don't know what it
He
was.
sold the property, so it's his refund check.
Oh,
You should get the refund on his utility bill.
Oh, I don't know.